Thank you for joining us and welcome to the second California Caregiver Resource Center event. We are so grateful to you and all family caregivers for all that you do, and we look forward to sharing valuable information with you over the course of the next 2 hours. This event is in celebration of Older Americans Month, and today you will be hearing from team members from all of our Caregiver Resource Centers. The California Caregiver Resource Centers, often referred to as CRCs, are a network of 11 nonprofits. Together, we serve family caregivers in every county in California. So what is a family caregiver? Caregiver is a term used to broadly describe a relative or close friend that provides unpaid or informal assistance to someone like a parent or a spouse with a debilitating condition. In other words, you are a caregiver if you regularly provide tangible and or emotional help to another person and feel responsible for their well-being. And that's why today it's all about you. Let's take a look at this video about the California Caregiver Resource Centers.
Many Californians provide help to a loved one living with Alzheimer's, dementia, or a chronic, debilitating condition. This experience changes the lives of friend or family caregivers forever, with devastating effects on those providing this long-term care. Being a caregiver can be overwhelming, but you are not alone. We are here to help. Founded in 1984, the California Caregiver Resource Centers are a network of 11 nonprofit centers throughout the state offering free and low-cost support to unpaid friend or family caregivers. Together, we serve every county in California, providing a range of services from counseling and care planning to legal and financial consulting and even respite care to give you the caregiver resources you need. The CRCs are united by shared values emphasizing choice, collaboration, innovation, quality, participation, respect, diversity, and inclusion. There is support wherever you are. You do not have to go on this caregiver journey alone. Visit our website, caregivercalifornia.org, to connect with your local Caregiver Resource Center today.
Throughout the event, you'll be hearing more about these resources and services from each CRC. Remember, there is support wherever you live in California. To learn more about the CRC nearest you, visit caregivercalifornia.org. Now we want to learn more about you, the family caregiver. Let's do a quick poll. You can click on the link in the comments or go to the URL that you see on the screen below. The first question is, where are you in your caregiving journey? Are you in the beginning stage looking for basic resources and developing a care plan? Or the middle stage where you may have a care plan established and working with community partners such as your local CRC? Or the end stage, searching for long-term care or end-of-life resources? If you're not sure, click on I don't know. The second question, what help or resources are you most interested in as a family caregiver? This may be connecting with your local CRC, finding educational resources, training, support groups, or you might not even be sure. We'll be learning more about resources in our event today. And last, how do you access information about caregiving? There are so many ways to connect, and we want to make sure you are getting the information that you need. Do you attend events? Research the internet? Turn to family or friends? Or maybe you prefer to get information on social media or directly from a healthcare professional. All right, we're starting to see responses come into these questions. Remember, go to the link on the screen to share your answers. Now let's take a look at what you've shared. So in question number 1, where are you in your caregiving journey? It looks like a lot of you are in that middle stage. In the second question, where we asked what you are most interested in, it looks like a lot of you are interested in the education, training, support groups, as well as obtaining resources. And in question number 3, how do you access the information that you are seeking? It seems that a lot of you are attending virtual events as well as getting information from your healthcare professionals. Thank you so much for sharing that great information. Now that we've learned a little bit more about you, let's get underway with our first segment, exploring caregiving needs and resources. It's so important to be present and mindful. And to get us into the right headspace, please welcome Ymkje from Presence Care Project, who will be leading us through a mindfulness exercise.
Good afternoon, everyone. So to start with, I invite you all to take a moment and orient yourself to the space that you're in. I don't know what your day looked like until you arrived at the screen, but maybe you could take a moment to just look around, just turn your head very slowly, and look around the room where you are to really take in and arrive in this moment, in this place, and tune also into your body, feeling its weight on the chair. And when you're comfortable, you can close your eyes and I will ring my bell. I brought my big bell today. I will ring the bell and that will signal the start of this practice. So you can close your eyes if you're comfortable with that. And here we go. Allowing the sound of that bell to settle your mind a little. And noticing how your body feels now. Just checking in with your feet and move your way up to your knees and hips and your seat. Up your back and belly, your chest. Checking in with your shoulders and your arms. And your neck and head and your face. And see if you can notice any sensations, maybe a tension or soft spots maybe in your body that feel comfortable. And maybe some places that don't feel so comfortable. Just notice how you are. And there's no real need to change anything unless you want to. Maybe you want to move or stretch a little. If you notice a discomfort, then that's okay too. Now also noticing how your mind is right now. How your mind is after a day of caregiving, a day of attending to someone else's needs. Or maybe you are working today. Whatever preceded this event, this moment, notice how your mind came out of that. Is it calm and settled, or is it all over the place? However it is showing up for you right now, it's okay. We're just checking in. And expanding awareness now to also include your heart. How are you feeling? How are you feeling? How are you feeling right now after today, after this past week or past month or year? How are you feeling? What are you bringing into this moment? Maybe there's a heart heaviness, or maybe there's some joy or gratitude or anger, or maybe a lot of these things all mushed together. In care exchanges, it's helpful to know what you're bringing into it in terms of your body and your mind and your heart. It's good to check in and know what you're bringing into a care exchange, but also in order to know what you need. What is it that you need right now? And now imagining your attention like a spotlight, moving that spotlight now to find places in your body that move with each breath, that expand with the in-breath, maybe your belly or chest or shoulders or back. And then move into relaxation as you let go of breath with the out-breath. No need to breathe in any certain way. Simply following what's already happening, what your body does, what your body knows how to do. And following the sensations that come with that, following the sensations that come with the in-breath and the out-breath. However your body breathes itself, just following these sensations as an anchor for your mind to settle with, to use as an anchor so that you can take a moment and de-stress. Whenever your mind does wander, you can simply return that attention back to that anchor in a very kind and gentle way, much like how you would reach out your hand to a friend or to your loved one. With that kind of kindness, return your mind over and over again to this anchor of your breath so that you can have a moment to de-stress, to catch your breath, really. In a moment, I will ring the bell again, signaling the end of this practice. And I invite you to conjure up an attitude of curiosity, of receptiveness to whatever comes next in today's presentation. And know that you can always return your attention to this anchor if you need a break. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that meaningful exercise, Ymkje. Our CRC team members interact with many family caregivers each day. They hear stories of challenges and triumphs, sadness and joy. Most importantly, our team members can guide you to the resources and support you may need to navigate your caregiving journey. To talk more about mental health and emotional health, let's hear from family consultants at Del Oro, Valley, Redwood, Orange County, and Coast CRCs.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for being here with us today. It's really a pleasure to have you all. Basically, what we're going to cover today in this panel with all of you are specifics about the emotional and mental distress of caregivers, types of burnout, the types of resources that caregiver resource centers provide to caregivers, when and how caregivers should ask for help, and basically what you all do to facilitate the well-being of caregivers in our community. So I think let's go ahead and start out with Carolina. Can you please tell us what some of the signs are for emotional and mental distress in family caregivers and basically define what burnout is?
Thank you, Rachel. So we know that caregiving for a loved one can be very rewarding, but it can also come with a lot of stress. And often caregiving can be long-term, and the stressors and the emotional impact can snowball over time. And so as Rachel mentioned, caregiver burnout is something that that can be experienced, and it's a topic, and it's one of the reasons of why we exist. It can either be caregiver burnout, or it can just be caregiver stress. And some of the signs are feelings of anxiety, depression, irritability, feeling tired, constantly exhausted, having difficulty sleeping, worsening health problems, feelings of resentfulness, maybe neglecting ourselves as people, and not doing the things that we would do, things that we would enjoy, having trouble relaxing. And there's other symptoms and signs that we often experience and can be a part of caregiver burnout and caregiver stress. So I think it would be really good to talk with someone if we are feeling these symptoms, if we're starting to feel these levels of stress. Am I missing anything, Rachel?
No, that all sounds really good. Brenda, did you want to add anything to that?
I would just say that don't self-identify as being a caregiver. I'm just a daughter, I'm just a wife. But in truth, they are caregiving. So people will either be super agitated and be kind of hyper and talk really fast, or they might be really slow, almost like they're moving in slow motion. And particularly listen to the people around them. If somebody expresses concern, they should remember to put themselves first. And if they're feeling anxious or tired, they need to address that and have someone help them with it.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So thank you so much, Brenda and Carolina. That kind of segues into the next thing that I wanted to talk about, and that is, when should caregivers reach out for help? Is there a right time? And if there is, what would you consider that time to be? So Yi, do you want to talk about that a little bit?
Yes, as I would say, as soon as possible. I know that we often don't plan for caregiving. No one does. Often I see caregivers come to us and say that, I wish that I had known more about your services. So as soon as possible, the more you're knowledgeable about resources in the community, the more helpful they're going to get the help that you need to balance the stresses, to balance the level of care that you're providing. And so as soon as possible, that is what I would recommend to all caregivers. Even if you're just starting in caregiving and you don't need the help, it's nice to know what kind of help is available, so that when you do, you can make that decision, tap into those resources.
Thank you, Yi. Erin, how about you? What is your experience in when the right time is for individuals to reach out for help when it comes to their caregiving experience and their needs?
Yeah, I mean, I would agree with Yi that, probably as soon as possible. I think it's important, like you said, to know what the resources are and how to access them. So, even just getting on our mailing list so that when we're having trainings, when when the support groups are, so that when the need, like, okay, I'm ready to get to a support group now because I really need that support. You know how to access them and you know where they are before it's too late and before you feel like you're in crisis.
Mm-hmm. Do you want to expand a little bit on the resources and support that CRCs can help to provide and find for caregivers?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And the other thing I would say too is that it's really helpful. We kind of talk about it as being adding tools to your tool belt. And so, the earlier the better, getting that education, just kind of adding those tools to your tool belt so that when stressful things arise or a situation comes up that you are really feeling and experiencing some burnout, you have those tools in your tool belt. You know how to, have some of those coping mechanisms that we can talk to caregivers about. So at the CRCs, we have, the caregiver support groups. We have some psychoeducational groups that can really help give caregivers those tools. We can help provide them with some counseling resources and definitely just referrals to counselors and to, talking to their doctor. And one of the best tools that we have, I think, is our comprehensive assessment. And so really just focusing our care on the caregiver themselves. And, so much focus is on the care receiver. And so just talking to and checking in with the caregiver themselves about what their needs are, what their experience is. And then we can kind of pair our services with what's going to be best for their individual experience. Yeah.
Thank you, Erin. I agree that assessment is incredibly valuable. I think that sometimes caregivers come to CRCs and think to themselves, I need help for my loved one. And then they get unity with all of you to find out what help they need for themselves to continue to care for their loved one. And that assessment is an excellent tool. Carolina, do you want to talk a little bit about the resources and support that that you offer as a family consultant to caregivers?
Yeah, and I want to piggyback on the fact that both of you mentioned, we do the assessment. There is a process. We do the intake and we do the assessment, and going through those tools, it just helps us tailor what our services are and what the community services are out there for them that are available for both the care receiver and the caregiver. Pretty much how Erin mentioned, as a family consultant, I'm here for my caregivers. I am a service myself. I am here to provide emotional support, guidance, feedback, and community resources. But we're also here to do caregiver support groups where you can connect, caregivers can connect with other family caregivers and they can feel supported. It's nice to be able to talk to someone that is going through a similar situation and to know that they felt what you're feeling. Also to know that they are not going to be judging you because they're pretty much in the same shoes. We also do short-term individual therapy for caregivers who are experiencing symptoms of depression and anxiety. It's nice to have that one-on-one consultation with a family consultant to help alleviate these symptoms. And as Erin mentioned, we have the classes to develop these tools to help us just tackle the symptoms of depression, anxiety, stress, or just to make us stronger as people so that we can have all the tools that we need to be able to cope with the stress that's coming.
Mm-hmm. Thank you so much, Carolina. And Brenda, that kind of plays nicely into the next topic, and that is the emotional and mental health of caregivers. So caregivers often do require emotional and mental support. What other services do CRCs offer that provide that support?
So I just want to echo and reiterate everything everyone else has said, that, each person is different. So we look at the caregiver individually and help decide what would be the best course of action for them. We do offer counseling sessions. We have contracts with counselors who specialize in working with caregivers. What we sometimes hear with someone who goes to a counselor who doesn't understand caregiving, that the person is spending most of their session explaining what caregiving is. So the fact that our contracted counselors already know, are expert in caregiving, they can give them the best tools to help them react to the next situation in a better way. So we have the counselors that we have contracts with. We do facilitate support groups. We have dementia-specific support groups that we facilitate. And then just as in the course of family consultation, as we get to know the client, we have other tools that we can recommend to them. For example, if you have a caregiver who doesn't necessarily want to join a support group and they don't get a lot of sleep at night, they might want to take advantage of going into the CareNav system once they have an account set up and avail themselves of the resources there. So we just try to make sure that we're concentrating on the person and offering them the best support we can.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Brenda. Yi, I was just curious about the types of community resources that Del Oro can connect individuals with. Are you comfortable talking about that just a little?
Certainly. Talk about Valley. We have, I think we all talked about the opportunity to talk at so many different levels that we offer to our families. And that opportunity to talk starts with the consultation, in which we sit down with the family during that assessment. And after completing the comprehensive assessment, we come up with a plan, and that care plan is to look at each individual caregiver situation, look at the specific issues and concerns that are there, and connect them to the resources in the community, whether it's in the community or internally the services that we can offer to help alleviate some of the stress, some of the frustrations that come with caregiving. Perhaps the caregiver, their attendants, they're going to, but we need to give them a break so that they can, feel re-energized, recharge. Perhaps there is some legal issues that power of attorney is not in place. And then after that comprehensive assessment that we've completed, we can refer them to an attorney that we contract with. We also have, again, talking about individual counseling services. I think we provide opportunity for families to talk at so many different levels. Consultation to the support group, individual counseling sessions specifically for that family. And that opportunity to talk really helps them look at their situation, help them identify, brainstorm, come up with possible solutions to address some of the stresses, some of the frustrations, some of the emotions that are coming, that accompanies, caregiving. And so that care plan is really what the roadmap for the family.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Yi. I'm so glad you talked about the care plan. That is an invaluable tool for a lot of caregivers. It can be hard to know where to start. And that care plan is an excellent starting point. So I just want to open it up for a moment and ask the other family consultants, is there anything that anybody wants to add in regards to your own experience, your own opinions, working with caregivers, your own communities that you serve and the resources that you provide individually?
I'll go ahead and add something. One of I wanted to mention was that I think the most powerful things that we can do as family consultants, and also something they get from the groups, is not only the encouragement, but just kind of giving them permission. That's kind of how we describe it. Giving our caregivers permission to take care of themselves, to address their own healthcare needs, their own, emotional mental, spiritual needs, not only because we know it helps them, be better caregivers, but because they're also individuals that get to have a life outside of caregiving and get to take care of themselves. And so just, hearing that outside perspective from the family consultants or from other members of the group that just kind of give them permission to be able to take care of themselves and to take those next steps, addressing their own health needs. I think that's been really powerful for my caregivers.
And I would add to that the importance of self-care. The caregiver is the most important person in the equation, right? If something happens to them, then what's going to happen to their loved one? So self-care is not selfish. Self-care is selfless. They need to take care of themselves, and we validate them so that they appreciate their importance.
Thank you so much, Brenda. Yeah, it's someone in my organization here at Del Oro describes it as putting your own oxygen mask on before you put the one on the person next to you. Yeah. So, well, I think we're going to go ahead and wrap
guilty for doing so. Yeah, I'd say our caregivers often feel very guilty for taking care of themselves, doing something for themselves. So I think coming from the consultants, giving them that permission, and hearing from the consultant, they feel relieved to be able to do that. So it's important.
Yeah, thank you, Yi. That validation, that is very important. So, I think Carolina, did you want to add anything before we start to close out the panel?
I think everyone has said everything that there has to be said. I agree with all of them, and it's true. It's just learning, remembering, and just making a little bit of time to take care of ourselves. I know it can be hard, but just a little bit so that we can do things that we like ourselves too. That's all that matters. Thanks.
Thank you, Carolina, Yi, Brenda, and Erin. It's been a pleasure being here with you all today, and I look forward to the opportunity in the future. I hope that everyone watching this panel has benefited.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rachel.
Thank you.
Yeah.
What an amazing conversation about the importance of mental and emotional well-being. Our CRCs have worked with all types of caregivers in California, and we are proud to be able to support family caregivers wherever they are in their caregiving journey. Caregiving can be tiresome, and getting a break can be vital to a caregiver's well-being. Here with us is Jessica Melchor from Passages CRC to start the discussion about respite care.
Thank you, Martha. Hi, everyone. Respite is one of the most valuable services that the Caregiver Resource Centers provide, as Martha said. So, and not everybody knows what that is. So let's start with a few questions. We're going to have another poll here for you. So click on the link in the comments below, or type in the link as well to join the live poll that we have here. So we have 3 questions for you. The first is, have you heard of respite before? Yes or no? Question number 2, do you know the cost of respite? Yes or no? Number 3, if you had respite, what activities would you do? And please select all that apply. Again, click on the link in the description below to share your responses. And respite is a critical intervention of the caregiving journey. So we want to make sure that you are informed of what it's about. As a reminder, those questions are, again, have you heard of respite before? Do you know the cost of respite? If you had respite, what activities would you do? Let's look at some of the results here. Have you heard of respite? A good majority of you have, so that's good. You're informed. And, tuning into events like this are good too. And some other results here. The results are keep coming in. Do you know the cost of respite? So a majority of you don't know the cost of respite. So you'll be well informed here shortly of what that entails and how the caregiver resource centers can support that. And the third question, if you had respite, what would you do? So majority of you, quite a good chunk would run errands, maybe focus on your own health and get to your medical appointments. Spend time with friends. Having that social outlet is good for the caregiver. Relax by themselves. Absolutely. Sometimes just having those 5-10 minutes to yourselves is critical just to get the day going. So we, as you can see, there are many different activities that you can do when you have respite coming into the home. Yeah, these results are still coming in.
Thanks, Jessica. As you may know, respite is such a valuable resource. Let's learn more about this from Roberto Velázquez, President and CEO at Southern Caregiver Resource Center.
Hello, I'm Roberto Velázquez, President and CEO of Southern Caregiver Resource Center. It is a privilege to be here to talk with you about a very important part of the caregiver journey, and that is respite care. However, before we talk about respite care, I'd like to begin by talking about caregiving and some of the challenges associated with being a family caregiver. Next slide. As a family caregiver, you become responsible for so much. You provide care and support to a frail and/or disabled loved one who also often is living with a cognitive disorder like Alzheimer's disease or another related dementia. You assist with cooking, feeding, managing medications, paying bills, bathing, personal hygiene, doctor's visits, and the list goes on and on and on. On top of that, many family caregivers are also caring for children in the home, and most family caregivers are also employed outside of the home. It is no wonder why so many family caregivers will, over time, suffer from physical and emotional problems, especially without professional help and guidance. In fact, studies show that up to 60% of family caregivers will suffer from clinical depression, as this labor of love can become overwhelming. And that is why it is so important to implement self-care into your caregiver journey. Next slide. So what is respite care? Respite is defined as a temporary delay or rest. For the caregiver, respite is specifically defined as substitute care or supervision for their loved one, allowing the caregiver a break from the stresses of everyday care. As I always say, a good care plan should also include getting some relief from caregiver responsibilities. Respite is a very valuable service. It gives you a much needed break, which is the key to self-care. Next slide. Now let's talk about the types of respite care. You basically have two types, formal and informal respite care. Some services are brought into the home, known as home care, often through an in-home care provider who sends trained professional caregivers to your home to provide companionship to your loved one, but also to assist with some care needs while you get a chance to get away and leave the house and take a break. And some services that are available out in the community, such as adult daycare programs and residential care facilities, like assisted living communities and smaller boarding cares, and even skilled nursing facilities. Next slide. The other type of respite is informal care, which is often provided by friends and families, and can also include volunteers from churches and synagogues and other social service types of agencies. Often families use a combination of both formal and informal to help them with their caregiving responsibilities and in order to be able to take a break. How do I pay for this, you might ask? Well, typically it is private pay. However, there are some government and private financial assistance programs that provide respite care. For example, through the veterans benefits, through Title IIIe programs for older adults, and other nonprofits. And in California, through the California Caregiver Resource Centers, which are funded by the Department of Healthcare Services. In fact, last year, we provided 150,000 hours of respite to families throughout the state of California. Next slide. But the best way to find out if you qualify for free or low-cost respite care in your area is to go to the website at caregivercalifornia.org to connect with your local caregiver resource center. Thank you.
I'm sure we could all use some respite. Thank you for sharing that valuable information, Roberto. It's helpful to remember that there is a spectrum of respite resources, both formal and informal, available to caregivers. If you have any questions about respite, please connect with your local CRC, which you can find at caregivercalifornia.org. Many of our CRC team members have been in their caregiving role themselves. This gives them a unique perspective on what you as family caregivers are experiencing. Let's turn to Simone Nasal from Del Oro and John Balutz from Del Mar CRC to hear more about a personal experience receiving respite.
Hello, Simone. Hello,
Hi,
everybody.
John.
It's a pleasure to be here. Listen, you're the ideal person to tell us about respite here, working at the CRC and being a caregiver yourself. Maybe we could just start to you. What is respite?
To me, respite is that lifeline that allows a caregiver to engage in the kind of self-care that we were talking about before in the panel, the kind of self-care that isn't selfish but is vital for one, to maintain a sense of well-being so that one can care for another person. That's what respite has meant to me and means to me.
Tell us a little more about that and your experience of a family as a family caregiver. Tell us about yourself.
Yeah. So like so many of the clients that we work with, I started my caregiving journey thinking, I could just do it by myself. I had this real resistance to accepting outside help, even though my safety net was pretty much non-existent. And I hit a wall. And I think that it's really scary and frustrating when you are sure that, for me, I provided care for my mom, and I knew my mom and I loved my mom, and I thought I could be her person. I could do everything for her. And when I hit that wall, it was just so frustrating. Like, how is it that I can't be Superwoman? Like, why can't I provide everything for this person? And, coming to the end of yourself is a really difficult and uncomfortable experience as a caregiver, but it's also a good one in that it invites you to accept help. And help came for me in the form of respite. I was actually a client at Del Oro Caregiver Resource Center before I started working here. They plugged me in with a professional caregiver who was like an angel for my mom. My mom loved me, and I was able to provide her good care to an extent, but I was also her baby. I was also her daughter. And for those caregivers who are caring for parents, just because you are caring for your mom or dad does not mean that they look at you and see you as anything but their baby, right? And so that can be really an interesting dynamic and challenging sometimes. And so having another person come in, someone who is competent, confident, and has a set of different experiences that I don't have. It was great for my mom. They laughed together. They were able to, talk about things that, you know, my mom wouldn't necessarily talk about with me. And so it was good for her. It brought her joy, and therefore brought me joy. And it allowed me to go do things like go grocery shopping. It allowed me to go see my friends. It allowed me to take a nap. I don't know if anybody here could use a nap, but like I definitely needed naps when I was caregiving. So that's kind of how it fit into my caregiving journey.
And you talked about kind of how it helped you as a caregiver. What were some of the things the caregiver did for your mom specifically?
Well, I mean, as you're asking, John, like I'm having really vivid memories, actually. I mean, some of the hardest aspects of caring for my mom, who had metastatic breast cancer. It traveled to her brain, so she was both cognitively impaired and very, very frail. And the caregiver that worked with her helped with things like bathing and toileting, which were things that I helped with too. But at the end of my mom's life, it started to get harder and harder for just me, one person, to attend to even those activities of daily living, right? To help my mom with those basic things. So that was one thing. And then the companionship piece, during those moments where I stepped away and engaged in my own self-care, were really, really important. So I would say, you know, like, in a way, like, this individual almost became, you know, like family, and it allowed my mom and I to have, to return to that dynamic of my being her daughter and her being my mom more often. And so we had some really tender moments too. I remember, sorry if I'm waxing nostalgic here, but I remember getting into the hospital bed with her, you know, after a respite caregiver had come to the house, and I cuddled with my mom, and I got to be her baby again. She got to be my mom again, but her needs had been taken care of and my needs had been taken care of. And so we just were able to return to that space of being us again.
Well, thanks. And you've really highlighted some of the real benefits of respite, how it gave you a chance to see friends, how it made you a better caregiver, how it did a lot of great things for your mom. I'm sure along the way, and especially at the beginning, there were challenges in having somebody new come in. Maybe you could talk about some of the challenges of having a caregiver and how you overcame them.
For sure. I think that's a wonderful question. And I am sure there are many people, you know, on the call today who might be saying, well, that's all fine and well, but, you know, my loved one doesn't want anyone in the house. Well, let me tell you, my mom, she put up a fight when we first introduced the idea of respite care. She did not want anybody in the home. Like, she wanted to age in place, but she was like, you can do this, Simone. You're smart, you're tough. You can take care of me on your own. We don't need to invite other people into our business. And so one of the challenges was getting her on board. And sometimes that is really not an easy thing. Sometimes a loved one feels uncomfortable with the idea of a stranger coming into their space. And so I think that it's really important for the caregiver to do a little bit of research, and really try to see if they can find someone whose personality or experiences could complement that of their loved one. And I know that that's not always going to happen in the first go. And I would just encourage people who have tried respite and it didn't work out the first time, right? It wasn't a personality match. Don't give up. It certainly wasn't for my mom. The first caregiver that we had was a no-go, right? And then eventually we found this woman who just kind of clicked with her. And like I said before, was able to reach her in ways I couldn't, even as her daughter, was able to talk to her and care for her. And so it's having that patience, and it's being able to communicate well your knowledge of your person with a professional caregiver. But then it's also being able to let go. I would say that's a challenge at the individual level, right? Because I think sometimes as family caregivers, we're like, we know our person so well, and we don't, we know we need help, but we don't want to let go. So we're constantly checking in or checking up. And once you've done that preliminary work of finding someone you think will jive with your loved one, then there's the challenge of just letting go, letting yourself take that nap, letting yourself go grocery shopping, letting yourself visit friends without feeling guilty or like you need to continue doing this role. So I would say those are the main challenges.
Well, thank you so much, Simone, for sharing some of your own personal story here today. And
Yeah.
I'm certainly lucky to have someone like you as a caregiver, and we've been lucky to share some of that wisdom.
Thank you so much, John.
Incredible to hear how important respite can be to a family caregiver. Again, we encourage you to reach out to your local CRC to learn more about this service by going to caregivercalifornia.org. As we move into our next segment, our focus will shift to caregiving and technology. One of the best tools available to family caregivers is CareNav. Let's learn more about CareNav in this video.
Are you a family caregiver? The California Caregiver Resource Centers are here to help you. There are hundreds of resources available via our online portal, CareNav. Easily set up an account, answer a few questions about your unique caregiving experience, and immediately receive personalized resources. A Caregiver Resource Center team member can also guide you through the comprehensive services and resources available to you. Caregiving is a challenging journey, but you don't have to navigate it alone. Find your local CRC and set up a CareNav account by going to caregivercalifornia.org today. That's caregivercalifornia.org.
Whether you're planning ahead, facing an immediate caregiving challenge, or somewhere in between, CareNav is a great tool for family caregivers. Learn more about CareNav at caregivercalifornia.org/CareNav. Do you already have a CareNav account? Let us know in the comments below. It's very easy to set up your CareNav account. Let's take a look at how someone in San Diego would create their CareNav account. First, we'll go to caregivercalifornia.org. We'll click on Find Your Local Center. And here we have three options. You can enter your zip code, select your county from the drop-down menu, or click directly on the map based on where you live. We'll select San Diego from the drop-down. And now we'll see the information about your local CRC, which is Southern Caregiver Resource Center. You'll see there is a button for CareNav, which takes us directly to the account setup page. Once you have an account, you can also use this page to log in. Let's look at the section called Become a Member. This is where we can set up our CareNav account. All you need to enter is your email, password, and zip code. Click Join, and this will send you an email confirmation. Once you click on the link in the confirmation email, your account will be all set up. The next step is to log in and complete your Care Review intake questionnaire. This will take about 10 to 15 minutes to complete, and then you'll begin receiving tailored information materials based on your answers. Of course, your personal information is always private and secure. All responses and comments will be kept confidential. This is just the first step in connecting you with resources. A family member from your local CRC will be available to answer any questions and to make sure you're receiving the support that you need. If you haven't already done so, be sure to sign up for your CareNav account. And remember, this is just one way to connect with your local CRC. If you prefer, you're always welcome to call the office directly as a first step. CareNav is just one of many technologies and tools available to family caregivers. Let's welcome family consultants from Bay Area, Inland, Orange County, and LA CRCs to share other important resources.
Hello, and thank you for joining us today. My name is Yvonne Gray. I'm with the LACRC on the Community Engagement Team, and I'll be your moderator for this panel on assistive technologies. Okay, let's get started. Crystal, could you please explain what assistive technologies are?
Of course. So here at Inland Caregiver, we would define assistive technology or assistive devices as a product or a tool that can help the caregiver with their daily activities. This product is either to improve or to maintain, their everyday living, to live independently, to help them with those functions that they do every day. That does vary by caregiver or by the care receiver. So some assistive devices may work for some care receivers and some may work for other care receivers. So it's very case by case. Not one single device works, all around for everybody. But it is supposed to be a device just to help the caregiver and the care receiver to live more independently.
Thank you. And Carolina, as a trend, which assistive technologies are family caregivers requesting consistently?
So some of the assistive technologies that I have heard on, a lot of my clients have inquired about on the low tech end are walkers, grab bars, shower chairs, and on the high tech end of assistive technology, I have received inquiries about home security systems such as cameras, sensors, door sensors or door chimes. I have also been asked about medical alert systems and different types of medical alert systems available for their loved ones. As Crystal mentioned, everything depends on what the caregiver is looking for.
Absolutely. Thank you. And Christina, could you please tell us about some of the assistive technologies that family caregivers should know about?
Some are similar to what Carolina just mentioned. I think people are most familiar with the personal emergency response systems. We've seen those in the commercials, the I've fallen and I can't get up buttons that somebody can push. And those can be really helpful for somebody who maybe can be left home alone for a period of time. And more of them also have fall detection built into them. So if they can't push the button, it still will put in a call for help. I think a lot of caregivers ask about and are helped by some of the GPS devices. If they're caring for somebody who there's a concern that they might wander or leave the house on their own, GPS devices on a watch or something they can attach to clothing or even in the soles of the shoes can be really helpful for caregivers. Home sensor systems, again, that provide more passive monitoring for somebody who is in the earlier stages and doesn't need as much direct assistance, can be really useful in alerting the caregiver if something has changed. And then for medication, we know caregivers are managing so many medications for the person they're caring for and also potentially for themselves. So they might be medication systems that just help track what somebody's taking, whether they've taken their medication, or will provide reminders for whether somebody actually has taken their meds yet.
Thank you. Yeah, definitely different forms of assistive technologies out there. Thank you. Carolina, which brings me to you, which assistive technologies have family caregivers benefit from the most, to your knowledge?
I think that's a good question. And honestly, the technology that will benefit the caregiver the most is the one that they and their loved one will actually use, and the one obviously that they have a need for. But I emphasize the one that they and their loved one will use because sometimes we have an idea of something and it might be great, but our loved one might not be prone to use it or might not want to be using it. I have heard stories where a different shower chair can make a huge improvement in the bathing ritual. And I have also heard from other caregivers that having cameras in the home can provide a sense of relief when they're not physically present, or where there is a paid caregiver or another caregiver providing care, and the caregiver, the primary caregiver, is not there. I believe that having a conversation, with your loved one and with your family consultant about the different technologies available can be helpful with your caregiving journey and can help ease the caregiving stress that you might have.
Absolutely. Thank you for that. Christina, what are some assistive technologies that might be low to no cost that our family caregivers can benefit from? And how do they gain access to these resources?
It's a great question because unfortunately at this point, we're not seeing a lot of insurance coverage for assistive devices. Some of the lower tech assistive devices like walkers, like shower chairs, those may be covered by insurance, and you'll need to go through your doctor to get those authorized and approved by your insurance. Some of the higher tech devices, or even things like those personal emergency response systems, historically have not been covered. Exceptions we often see are within the VA system, but it doesn't hurt to ask, because as we've seen changes with Medicare Advantage plans and some supplemental services that they might be able to cover, it's worth requesting and asking about these. Some of the lower cost devices can be around telephones. In California, the California Telephone Access Program can provide free specialized phones for people when they have a form completed by their doctor that shows a need for it. So these might be phones with larger buttons or pictures instead of numbers for somebody who is having trouble remembering how to dial what phone numbers. They might be phones that are specifically for people who are hard of hearing. And then there's devices like door alarms that alert you when somebody might leave the house on their own. And those can be pretty cheap and pretty easy to install. And so they might be more accessible to a lot of caregivers. And then there's a lot of apps that are out there. And I think we're seeing this grow quite a bit, that there are more and more apps designed to help caregivers and the people they're caring for. And they might be guided relaxation exercises or meditation apps, or ones that you can use to track and monitor symptoms so you can share that information with the doctor. And those can be really helpful and often are free or very low cost. I think the one potential positive outcome out of COVID is the increase of available online services. So many senior centers, community centers, or libraries are holding online classes or activities that might be beneficial for you as a caregiver, or something that you can do with the person you're caring for.
Amazing. Thank you. Thank you for that information, Christina. And Crystal, could you please tell us how a family caregiver can find their local CRC to learn more about these tools?
Of course. We've been saying it all evening. If you visit the caregivercalifornia.org website, you can find your local CRC depending on what area you're in or what county you're in. There are tabs at the top of the website that says find your local CRC or find your local center, and you can either put in by county or by your zip code, and then from there just get redirected to your local CRC. From there, talking to that local CRC, whether it's inland or southern or wherever you're located at, finding more information on these assistive devices or assistive technologies, talking to the staff at our agencies and seeing what other resources are available. But definitely the caregivercalifornia.org website is probably the best way to go, your first route to go.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you. Carolina, could you please explain how the CRCs can support family caregivers with assistive technologies or locating them?
Of course. As family consultants, we can have a conversation with family caregivers about the current caregiving situation. We provide support and we provide information and community referrals, but also we can explore what assistive devices or technologies are available that they and their loved ones will feel comfortable using. We can have a conversation on different behaviors, technologies that would help with those behaviors, different challenges. And so we can provide information, we can help obtain resources, and also we might be able to help obtain the devices themselves if it's possible. So we can just explore options, and we can explore what can be beneficial for the caregivers to help them with their caregiving journey and facilitate caregiving.
Thank you. And this last question is for actually all of the panelists, and I'll start with Christina. What assistive technologies do you hope to see in the future, and what do you know of that is in development that you're excited about?
I hope, and this is less of a new technology, but more of what makes it accessible for caregivers, is I hope we'll see more coverage by insurance and by funders. There's a lot of great opportunities that are out there, a lot of great devices that might be useful for caregivers, but they're not always affordable or accessible. So I think this really takes all of us and caregivers out there doing that advocacy to say this is beneficial for the caregiver's health, this is beneficial for the health of the person they're caring for, just to try and get more of that covered. I think we're likely to see more technologies and devices that use the voice recognition system. So things like Amazon Alexa and Google Home. And those can be helpful for people with mobility challenges or fine motor skills limitations, because you can use your voice to ask for help or to get reminders. I know we've had caregivers who will say that they set reminders for medications or even going to bed in their Amazon Alexa, and the person they're caring for may not listen to them, but somehow will listen to Alexa when the reminder comes through. So I think we're going to see more technologies that start to use those, for good or bad. They all have some pros and cons to them, but I hear more about devices that are integrating with those types of voice recognition systems.
Thank you. Same question for you, Crystal. Any assistive technologies that you hope to see in the future, or that that's in development that you're excited about?
Well, not specifically that I know in development, but similar to what Christina was saying, I'm just excited for caregivers to actually start letting everybody know what they need. What assistance do you guys need? And then that can start the development of an assistive device that maybe is not available right now. There's always something or someone trying to develop a new assistive device to help. But that's going to require a caregiver to also explain what it is that we need help with. If that's feeding, I need help with feeding, then maybe we come up with, utensils. There already are utensils out that can help during feeding time or during meal time, but maybe there's something that we can advance more in. Not only to help, again, the care receiver, but also to help the caregiver so that they can both live independently. So I think that's what I hope for most in the future, is seeing more of it, seeing more science being evolved. Technology is evolving, so I'm excited for that. And just seeing how, all these tools can help our caregivers.
Thank you. And last but not least, Carolina, what are some assistive technologies you hope to see in the future or know of that's in development?
So I want to echo what Christina and Crystal said. I don't know of anything that's in development. I'm not privy to that, and it would be so cool to know what's coming out, in the near future. But making these things more accessible would, be so beneficial. And I am excited that there are so many more applications with tablets and phones, and they're more accessible to individuals, and communication devices, or to set reminders, which to me is very important. And so just knowing that hopefully more of these applications will be developed and would be more accessible to individuals, and hopefully easier to use. I hope that happens, and I look forward to that happening soon. So yeah.
Thank you. I agree with all of you. Hopefully they open up the avenues to make these resources and tools more accessible in the future. Well, this was a very informative session. I know a lot of people will benefit from the information greatly. I want to thank you, Christina, Crystal, and Carolina for participating, and everyone watching.
Thank you, Yvonne.
Thank you, Yvonne.
Thank you.
Thank you, panelists, for sharing all that great information and all those great tools available to family caregivers and their loved ones. Over the past year, the Caregiver Resource Centers have made great strides in providing virtual educational resources to family caregivers in California. Our Education Committee works together each month to highlight a variety of events in multiple languages, accessible from the comfort of your home. Have you attended any of our other virtual events? Let us know in the comments below. To learn more about these classes, please welcome Jessica Romero from Southern Caregiver Resource Center. Hi, Jessica.
Hi, Marta.
Thank you so much for joining us.
Marta, I can see you speaking, but I can't hear you. So I just want to make sure that everyone can hear me.
I think we can try and figure out if we can hear you. Can you hear us now, Jessica?
Now I can, yes. Hi.
Hi, how are you? I'm
me.
so excited that you're here with us. Thank you for joining us. I wanted to ask you a little bit about the CRC events and some educational events that the CRCs offer. Can you tell us what is available to family caregivers?
Yes, kind of going back to our last panel and going over the digital assistance that family caregivers can go through. I think it's very important that we talk about the kinds of events that we can find as caregivers in the CRC website. We have a great calendar of events for family caregivers. We offer workshops, conferences, webinars, and a lot more information accessible for everyone of a click of a button away, right? Now we can easily access all this information in wonderful classes with caregiving related topics such as how to manage Alzheimer's behaviors, how to boost your emotional health as a caregiver during this pandemic, how to talk to your doctor about those questions that you have in your caregiving journey. So there's a lot of different kinds of events available in our CRC website.
That sounds wonderful, Jessica. And what languages are they available in?
So as a statewide organization, we aim to bring caregiver educational classes in as many languages as possible. We are to greatly promote cultural diversity and definitely expand the reach of caregivers as much as we can. And so we are currently offering classes in English, Spanish, and Vietnamese. However, we are working to bring more educational content and many more multiple languages coming soon.
Now, I know you mentioned things online. Are these classes virtual or in person?
Right, yeah. So because of COVID, we are offering these classes virtually. So they're available on our website for you to register and get more information on how these classes are being offered. But we do everything virtual. As we do transition to reopen our state, I recommend that you stay connected with your local CRC that may offer in-person classes in the next coming months.
And where would you say that I should go to learn more about these events?
So as we've been talking this evening, definitely visit the caregivercalifornia.org website /events. And we also recommend that you connect with your local CRC for additional community events. As we move into this digital world, we do want to invite you to connect with the different social media channels for the California caregiver and your local one, just to make sure that you are up to date on the upcoming events in your local CRC.
So let me ask you, Jessica, if I cannot attend an event, where else can I find this educational information?
So that's a great question, Marta. Most of the CRC have content online. For example, at Southern Caregiver Resource Center, we have what we call the Ymkje portal. In the Ymkje portal, it's a platform available at the Southern Caregiver Resource Center website in which caregivers have everything under one section, right? You can access live stream classes, caregiver corner tip videos, which are very easy and something practical for caregivers to learn about. Taking a meal time for your loved one or how to deal with a difficult situation. It's just 1 minute quick tip videos that allow caregivers to learn something on the spot. We also have under the Ymkje portal our Let's Talk Caregiver podcast and we have newsletters. So there is a lot of educational information out there available online. Again, connect with your CRC and make sure that you know what's available to your local CRC.
Jessica, thanks so much for all that great information. If you want to learn more about upcoming events, visit caregivercalifornia.org/event. We've had such a great event so far. Before we get into our next segment, let's get out of our seats and welcome Dina Ontiveros from Coast CRC. She is going to share a little bit about the importance of fall prevention and Tai Chi as a form of exercise for older adults.
Hello, I'm Dina Ontiveros, and I'm a family consultant with the Coast Caregiver Resource Center. I'm here to demonstrate Tai Chi movement for better balance, an evidence-based fall prevention program. Did you know that one of the leading causes of death for our seniors over the age of 65 is falls? And did you know that falls can be prevented? How do we prevent falls? Well, we exercise, and one of the best forms of exercise is to do Tai Chi. So I'm going to demonstrate Tai Chi moving for better balance, an easy to do 8-form style of Tai Chi that you can practice along with me. So what's the first thing you do? Well, you stand up, and you stand up nice and straight, and you relax. Breathe, sway on your ankles, and step out. Begin. So the first form is called holding the ball. Shift your weight, step, turn, step, step, turn, step. Parting the wild horse's mane. Step, shift, shift, hold the ball and step, step, shift, shift, pivot, step. The whip, pivot, step, shift, shift, pivot, step, shift, step, shift, shift, step, waving hands like clouds, step, turn, step, turn, step, turn, step, turn, step, turn, step to the other side, step, turn, step, turn, step, turn, step, turn, step, turn, back to the ball. Now it's repulsing the monkey. Step, back, and step, back, pulse, and step, shift. Brushing the knee. Step, turn, shift, pivot, step, step, turn, shift, step. Her maiden works a shuttle. Step, shift, shift, step, step, shift, shift, step. Grasping the peacock's tail. Step, shift, 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 shift. We're almost done. Step, step, shift, 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 step, shift, and closing it up. Thank you for your kind attention. Now practice at home.
What a great way to work on balance, stability, and fall prevention measures. Tai Chi is an amazing resource. At the Caregiver Resource Center, our mission is to serve the needs of family caregivers. We have the honor to serve you, partially thanks to the funds we receive from the state of California. As you may know, each year the budget for services provided is reviewed and adjusted. Given that California is home to over 4.5 million family caregivers, having access to these vital services is critical to their well-being. Advocating for these ongoing services is a big part of the work that we do at the California Caregiver Resource Centers. By connecting with local and statewide government representatives, we ensure that the needs of family caregivers are highlighted and that the work and services we provide are addressed. Here to tell us more about the various policies that impact caregivers in California, please welcome Dr. Donna Benton, Executive Director of the LACRC.
Hello and good afternoon. I really liked that Tai Chi. It was so relaxing, really got us into the mood. And now I wanted to just spend a few minutes talking to you about how important policies that are there for family caregivers and how you can get involved. We're going to have a nice segment about how you can get involved, and so there'll be some other speakers, but let me tell you what's happened so far. Next slide, please. So one thing that we know about family caregiving and that we've learned over the years is that caregiving, even though it is something we do because we want to do this for our family, there's really a lot of cost involved with caregiving that aren't covered currently by any formal programs beyond the caregiver resource centers. And some of the costs are things that maybe if we had changes in laws, we might be able to cover some of these costs of caregiving. So right now, just in California, family caregivers provide about $58 billion worth of care and assistance each year that goes uncompensated. And about almost half of the people who are caring actually are working caregivers. And so sometimes that means that we have to take time off from work, which may not be something that's paid for, or we may not be able to, we have to make a choice and we aren't able to help somebody because we have to take time off. We also know that caregiving, there are a lot of expenses like maybe specific medications or personal care items or special diet foods that are not covered under any kind of medical program right now. And that usually comes out to almost $10,000 out of pocket that the family caregiver is paying. This is over and above what might be covered by other regular medical expenses. And of course, the time involved with caregiving when you're not able to take time for yourself, when you have to take unpaid time off, all of these contribute to family caregiving. But again, if we aren't recognized as family caregivers, it might just be assumed that we can all afford the money out of pocket. And if we need to have our somebody help care for the person because there are times when we need to go away, or you need to have somebody supervise, or maybe you need to help the person move into a different place outside of their home, none of those costs are going to be covered by any specific programs to help you or the person you're caring for. So next slide, please. One of the things that we really want to help legislators understand is that there are laws and bills that we can begin to advocate for, and that we have been over the years, that would help caregivers. We also know that, as somebody mentioned earlier, that caregiving, part of caregiving is that there's an emotional toll. And so even programs that help with education and help with stress and depression can help you as a caregiver, maybe so that you don't have your own medical problems that might be associated with stress of family caregiving. We also know that and almost 36% of people who were surveyed recently said that they actually had some financial strain because they were trying to take care of themselves and the person they were caring for. And in a 2016 survey, it found that 82% of people, in terms of just all the Californians here, would actually feel that if we had tax breaks or spent a little more towards caregiving, that they would be happy to have some type of program that would help with the long-term cost of family caregiving. So it's not that this is an issue that people aren't aware of. It's that many times the lawmakers are not aware of how and what kind of laws and bills do we need and programs to provide, use our taxpayer money toward to help us as family caregivers. Next slide, please. So let me tell you, we've already talked about it, and Martha mentioned that there are 4.7 million caregivers in California. And one of the things that's interesting is that caregiving and the caregivers are actually getting younger. Most caregivers are between the age of 40 and 50 years old, and that usually means that they're working and they may also have children at home. Of course, we know in California we have a very diverse population, and that means that the expenses, the types of needs and services for the diverse population need to be tailored to that population. So again, our laws need to keep up with the changing family structure that we have in California and the changing demographics. And we also know that as we've learned through COVID, is that now more than ever, we need to understand how we might integrate some levels of technology to help us with caregiving. And that isn't something that everyone has access to. We learned that through COVID, that the internet access isn't there for everyone. Not everyone has been trained on what kind of devices they can use. And then there are other technologies that we learned just earlier in the workshop that again are going to be out-of-pocket expenses, but maybe we could look at other ways of subsidizing those types of technologies. Next slide, please. So overall, even though times have changed and the family structure has changed and we may not have as many people to help us with caregiving, what hasn't changed are really some of the needs, and they have really remained constant. Most of the time when we talk and survey caregivers, and these aren't in any priority order, but they always say that we need more education about the diseases and understanding medical needs and the cost and understanding how to coordinate with the medical environment. We need emotional and psychological support and respite. Caregivers really want to know how to manage the daily activities and how to do home safety and understand legal issues that are involved when they become a family caregiver or as the disease progresses for the person that they're helping. Many times, if you're caring for someone with dementia, you want to understand behavior management techniques and how to communicate both with the person you're caring for, but also as a family and with other members in the community. And really, how do we also balance work and our caregiving needs? So all of these needs for caregivers can be done and are important, and then there could be programs that support this. One of the programs, of course, is the one that we're talking about today, which is the Caregiver Resource Centers that try to help address all of these. But again, they need funding. Next slide, please. So the other thing that's changed, and it really was brought out by the pandemic that we're kind of slowly coming out of now. But one of the things that really showed up is that we know that if there's a lot of complexity in care, caregivers today compared to those 40 or 50 years ago are really caring for people who are much sicker, who come out of the hospital with more needs and more things to have to manage besides medication. They may have special diets and different equipment with them. And so there's a lot more that is needed. COVID also showed us that we really need some ways to have remote medical service delivery, and we also have more sandwich generation people that showed up during COVID, and we had multiple people trying to use the internet while working from home and caring for children. Next slide, please. So one of the things that through advocacy and over the years, and we've really appreciated any time that You as family caregivers have written letters and called your legislative offices, and these have resulted in some very important bills that have helped family caregivers. One of the things is that there have been bills that have allowed us to have more funds for respite through the Caregiver Resource Centers and other through the National Family Caregiver Support Programs. We've also had some tax credits. We've improved paid sick days for family members across the board for caring for anybody of any age, but particularly for those caregivers who before never had even a single sick day that they could take that would have been unpaid. We now have paid sick day. Currently, we're also advocating right now for the expansion of paid family leave, which has expanded as of January. We have more weeks of paid family leave, but it's still unprotected paid, meaning that you could still lose your job if you take some of this paid leave for family caregivers. And the other thing is, it isn't always in terms of definition of who's family, because we always say family is someone that we feel that you should be able to choose, whether by blood or affinity, or, so somebody that may not be related, but that you want to trust and you want to be that caregiver. We need to have laws that allow us to choose how we define family and how that person can then use paid family leave. And that's one of the bills that we're doing this year that we need support besides the Caregiver Resource Center. We also are looking at bills around caregiver discrimination so that caregivers aren't in the workplace lose their job because they have to do specific things as a family caregiver. There are no bereavement leaves. Believe it or not, that's part of California. We don't have any kind of bereavement leave policy. And right now, it would be nice to have a way for caregivers to find the caregiver programs through different avenues, including aging and disability centers. Next slide, please. So what's happened since we have worked in California? Well, there's a master plan on aging that was released earlier this year. And through that master plan, one of the things that came to the top as the number 4 priority for the next 10 years is to help family caregivers. Part of that is to build the paid family workforce, provide more training, get more money for paid family caregivers, but that's also targeted specifically for low-income caregivers. But we can, through the caregiving in the future, is to continue to work toward other caregiving issues. So we have things around Alzheimer's Task Force, the Caregiving Resource Centers for the pilot we did receive funding 2 years ago, but that money will be reverting unless we are able to extend our pilot a little longer. And we're going to talk about that need, but this is the year where we're asking for continuation, which means we need to continue the funding so that we can continue to provide the services online for family caregivers in person and continue with our respite programs. And that means that we link to the master plan because it says in the master plan that there should be caregiving services throughout the state that are easy to access and that there should be more respite. And both of the asks that we have in right now for family caregivers include respite. We also right now are asking for wage replacements to be increased. We know that if you happen to lose your job or you need to take time off and you're using your paid family leave, if you're only getting 60% or less for your job replacement in terms of income, you may not be able to use what you're paying into, which is for paid family leave. So we'd like to have that income replacement at higher. And that's also something that is in legislation right now. And we would like to see more caregiver support because you may be paying into paid family leave, but if you can't use it, then it's not really going to help you a lot. So, last slide, please. So, so all of that is to say that legislation, and you're going to hear more about it, but what we're doing now is you can make an impact in terms of what types of laws can help you work better as a caregiver, make it easier for you, and we need to be able to tell our stories to legislators so that they understand why we need paid family leave, the caregiver resource centers, Alzheimer's disease centers, and specialized funding and assessment for family caregivers. Thank you, everybody, for listening. And we're going to be talking more about advocacy because we need you to take action today. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Benton, for that great overview. In order to be able to continue to provide these crucial services and resources, we need your help. Reaching out to your local representatives and participating in our advocacy efforts can make a huge impact. To tell us more about how we can get involved, please welcome Erin Levi, who works on government affairs with the California Caregiver Resource Centers.
Hi, I'm Erin Levi. I am your advocate or lobbyist, depending on the day in the Capitol, for the Caregiver Resource Centers Association. We've been doing quite a bit of work together over many, many years. So it is nice to speak with you today about why you should be an advocate and why we should all work together. It is our responsibility to speak with policymakers and legislators to let them know just about us and what our needs are. They do not know our issues or any of their constituents unless we tell them. If they think that we're quiet or they don't hear from us, they think all is fine in our worlds. And more importantly, and just as important, we want to make sure that if they do hear our concerns, that they don't make up the solution by themselves, but rather we give it to them. And how do we do that? We do it through grassroots advocacy. We are not big business. We are not big oil companies. We don't have big political fundraising dollars. We are people, and our currency is our vote and our voice. Next slide. And why should we be grassroots advocates? Well, one, we are not, again, advocating on things that don't affect people's personal everyday lives. We're not advocating on a gas tax. We're not advocating on the health of a particular fish in a particular pond in a particular area. Not to say that any of those issues aren't important and people are very passionate about them, but our challenges matter to our everyday lives. And we have the ability to express specifically what we need and what works for us and what does not. We also need to be grassroots advocates to give a voice to those who cannot provide their voice. Either they're too busy to advocate for themselves, they don't even know about the Caregiver Resource Centers. Those are the folks that we need to expand our program so that we can go get them and give them the support. And really, truly, it's important for you to know that the Caregiver Resource Centers have been talking to the legislature for over 30 years. We have credibility. You have credibility. We have the benefit of being a bipartisan issue, which means both Republicans and Democrats believe us and are willing to do what we ask of them. And on a side note, it's nice that many legislators are now starting to understand what family caregiving is. As you would be expected in the COVID situation, more people were home with their loved ones. While all that is tragic, at the same time, it's really been a benefit for us, for folks to understand how difficult these challenges can be and the need for education. Next slide. The 3 A's of advocacy: awareness, advancement, and action. Awareness. What do we need? Who's with us? And how are we going to get it? And that's what we're discussing today. Advancement is this meeting, the discussion, and then the what do I do about it? And the action, that's doing it. And you will hear in a bit after me that our action item is to sign a petition. Next slide. You have the tools that I don't have. And you have the tools that many of us don't have. You have your own personal stories of your daily lives. They need to hear, legislators need to hear what's happening to you if they vote on a certain issue or if they don't vote on a certain issue. And whether that be a vote to change a policy or not, or a vote to fund a program or not, such as ours. Raising your voice means that you have a significant need and you're serious about getting the solution. Again, not being corporate big guys with big guns means that we are real people and we live in these legislators' districts. We are constituents, we are voters, we have the ability to strongly voice our opinions about our legislator in the districts, whether we really appreciate their work or if we are displeased with his or her response. I will say that grassroots advocacy scares many legislators these days. They are willing to put up a conversation with big business, but when it comes to real people, they have a much more difficult time. Next slide. And always remember, you are the expert. One piece of grass doesn't build a beautiful park, but many pieces of grass do for all to enjoy. We need to all come together and explain our caregiving need and need for additional funds. The legislators see many, many issues, and they will not know, even if they see an issue on paper, they will not know if this is something that we want or we don't want. And so we have to help them be educated to fight for us when we give them the information. With one voice, the legislature can hear, all legislators will hear the same message and the same, please fund our program at the same amount so that there's no confusion. And then with this, our issue has come up for a vote. Not only will they see our support, but they will also know exactly what to do. Next slide. And what are we asking them to do? Well, first of all, we have a call to action, and this is grassroots advocacy right here, folks. Our call to action is to sign a petition. It's called the California Caregiver Resource Center's budget request of $12 million for the next 3 years. Luckily, you don't have to continue to say it and repeat it. It's a mouthful. But it's most importantly, what we need you to do is get on a website that you will be provided after this and sign it, give your information, and then you have done your action item. First step. Next step is sharing is caring. We are only as big as our voice is all together. We need to get out and tell people, family members, loved ones, neighbors, educate them on our issue if they don't know already, and encourage them to sign the petition as well. The more outreach, the louder the voice, the more likely you will be successful. We will be successful. Last slide. What can you do? Well, you can visit the website and sign that petition. It is easy, you will see, and it's important. Tell others like we just said, and you ready, set, go. The legislators will hear you. A signature, don't think that a signature is silence. A signature, again, back to the beginning, is you are a voter, you are a constituent, and you mean business. Your need is serious. I can promise you that they will listen to you and do something for you if they hear from you. And I can definitely promise you they will not do a thing if they don't hear from you. So thank you very much. Please get on the website and sign the petition. Your grassroots, your voice matters.
Thanks, Erin. Let's take a look at that letter that Erin mentioned. We are hoping that you feel motivated enough to support our efforts, and it's so easy to sign on. Go to the link that you see on the screen. It is also in the comments below. This will take you to the letter that we're asking you to sign on to. As you scroll down on the screen, you'll see the content of the letter. On the right-hand side, you can enter your information. We're actually doing it right now on screen. It's just asks for a bit of information, some of which is optional. If you want to share information but not share it publicly, you can select that at the bottom as well. And once you fill out all those fields, you'll see the button to sign at the bottom. And that's it. We're so appreciative of your support. If you have other family caregivers in your life or people who would like to support the important services that the CRCs provide, please encourage them to sign on to the letter too. Again, the link is on the screen below. At this time, I would like to introduce to you a very special advocate, Luz Villafaña, who is here in studio with us. Hi, Luz.
Hello.
I would like to invite her to share a bit about her experience as a family caregiver in California and what it means for her to advocate for services such as the ones that we provide. Luz, can you tell us a little bit about your experience as a family caregiver?
Oh, yes. I took care of my brother-in-law and my sister. My brother-in-law had a terminal illness. My sister with dementia. I did take care of them for about 18 months as a family member. I didn't ask for any salary or anything like that out of the love that we have for our families. So after he died and my sister went to live with her daughter, I was so drained from all the emotional, mental, and physical work that it takes to be a caregiver, especially with somebody that you love, that I ended up in the hospital. And they told me that it wasn't nothing wrong with me. It was exhaustion, that can affect your body with all those emotions. It was hard to let go, but I needed to take care of myself because when she was gone and my brother-in-law was gone, then that's all the running around that I did. I didn't even take care of my personal needs. That's when I just I was like in a strange place. I need to take care of myself, and yeah, so I am here now.
Well, thank you so much for being here with us, Luz. And you have been such an enthusiastic supporter of your local CRC. And I want to have you tell us a little bit about some of the activities that you participated in, as well as what motivated you to take action.
Well, I have done a couple of public speaking like I'm doing right now, because I need to get the message out. I know a lot of people that are doing what I did myself and have no idea there is help available. And also to let our people, our representatives in Sacramento, to take a look as to how much we're doing for the community. A lot of times, we spend money out of our own pockets to, like I did, taking my sister to the doctor, my own gas, taking her to lunch, little things like that. But 18 months, it adds up. So we need to be aware that there more of us are living longer lives, and more of us are going to be needing caretaking from our relatives. And the ones that don't have relatives nearby, like myself, I don't have any, my sons are in other states. We need to take care of them because we have contributed to society through our lives and also as taxpayers. And as the time comes when we need the help. And I want to advocate for the people, empower the people that represent us to take into account the needs of the community as we're living longer lives.
That is a great message, Luz. And one more question, if I may ask. How can you motivate our listeners or viewers today to get involved?
Yes, well, we all need to advocate for ourselves. As caregivers, we forget to do that. And we have to keep in mind that we need to also stay healthy. So to take care of ourselves when the time comes and to take care of the people that we love. So we need to let our voices know and come out of sometimes we don't want to, we feel selfish if we ask for help. But that's what we need to do. And we're doing a great job for the community, for our nation, and for the county, for the government. So thank you so much for the opportunity.
Thank you so much, Luz, for being here with us today and sharing your stories. And thank you so much for all of you who are signing on to the letter. We are so incredibly grateful that you've joined us for this event. We hope that you've learned more about the importance of mental and emotional well-being, as well as the many tools available to family caregivers and how to connect to the resources the CRCs provide. The California Caregiver Resource Centers are here to help you. Please be sure to visit us at caregivercalifornia.org to connect with your local CRC. Have a great evening.